It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
All right, good afternoon. Scott Luton back with you live on Supply Chain Now. Welcome back to the show. If you can't tell, we're broadcasting live today, continuing our coverage from MODEX, the largest supply chain trade show in all of the Western Hemisphere, held right here in Supply Chain City, Atlanta, GA. So on today's show, we're speaking with one of the industry leaders that is helping companies find supply chain talent so they can grow and succeed and smash through barriers, do some big things. So stay tuned as we look to increase your supply chain talent IQ. And much, much more, undoubtedly. Quick programming note, you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcast from. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I stole your line, Greg. Wherever you get your podcast from, tune in and subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. I want to welcome in my fearless, esteemed co-hosts here today, and that's plural. We've added a co-host today, a special co-host. But to the right of me, as usual, Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur, trusted advisor, and Atlanta City Club tennis champion. Comes with a gold plate that Greg refuses to bring to MODEX, which has broken my heart. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be among all these really talented folks. We did the Supply Chain Awards here at MODEX.
That's right.
And we've seen a lot of really cool technology and met a lot of really cool people doing great things.
Agreed. And this is going to be continued hits between our additional co-host,
yes,
Mr. Enrique Alvarez, Managing Director with Vector Global Logistics, which happens to host a studio for Supply Chain Now. And also, we love the guy. He's one of our dear friends. And if I can add to your distinguished introduction here, one of my favorite moments from Tuesday was when his company, Vector Global Logistics, was recognized as one of our 2 World-Class Culture Award winners. Enrique, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here. It's
don't leave him hanging, man.
Don't leave me hanging.
I won't. Didn't see your fist right there. I thought you were going to go with the elbow.
Yeah, everybody's a little bit confused, right?
But kidding aside, we've seen the culture at Vector Global Logistics firsthand.
Yep.
We've lived it in many ways.
We've stolen it a little bit.
Yeah. But what is absolutely unquestionable is their dedication to changing the world. Right. It's tough to do. It sounds very cliche, but based on the things they do and the areas they serve, and I mean from business to the charitable nonprofit stuff, Enrique, you're really setting the bar for how businesses should be run. So congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And as I said before, it's really not me. I mean, I'm just the person kind of like in front of the camera today and then just accepting the award. But it's really my team. We have amazing people. The culture is great because of them. They're the ones that are working incredibly hard to make such a crazy culture work. And I'm really excited to be here with Rodney today because I'm sure he's going to talk a little bit more about talent and people is what makes all the companies out there. So
that's
Amen.
Exactly right.
That's
Hiring
right.
is the most important thing you do.
So everybody's letting the cat out of the bag. I'm really excited to have a friend of mine. We've networked for years. I have admired from afar and sometimes in person in Asheville, Rodney Apple, founder of SCM Talent Group, which has done some really big things in the talent industry in general, but especially when it comes to supply chain. Rodney, good morning.
Good morning, Scott. And
how you
good
doing,
Greg?
Hey,
good morning, Enrique.
Good morning.
So great to have you here back in Atlanta. I know you've spent some time here earlier in your career, which we'll touch on momentarily. Mm-hmm. But what an incredible week of MODEX, huh?
It's been incredible, mind-blowing. I've seen some of the coolest technology I didn't even know exist. So it's pretty amazing.
And you got to, just when you think you've seen every trade show out there for the trade show veterans that are listening, if you haven't been to MODEX, you haven't seen this yet. I mean, this really takes a cake. So, but switching gears, we'll touch on MODEX and maybe some of your key takeaways momentarily here, Rodney. But for starters, tell us more about Rodney Apple and give us a sense of where you're from and give us a story or two about your upbringing.
Sure. So I am from the bustling metropolis of Sanford, North Carolina. It's right in the middle of the state and the smallest county out of 100, Lee County.
Okay.
So raised in a rural area, so got the work ethic from early on, working in tobacco, working in the farms, and and so forth. And then went to UNC Wilmington for college.
Okay.
What a beautiful campus.
I applied to 3 schools. Probably wasn't thinking of the education at the time. I was like, where's the fun place to go? And it was UNC.
You found it.
Well, East Carolina was the other one.
Yeah.
And then Appalachian State was the third one. So I got in. I think I got into all 3. And I wanted to go to the beach. So
you decided you were beach tribe, not mountain tribe, because
I live in the mountains now.
Yeah.
So I kind of switched gears. I'm a
very diverse
50-50 beach mountain guy.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. And the UNC Wilmington mascot, I was trying to get that.
Seahawks.
Yep. Seahawks, that's right. I knew that. Okay. So talk about, from a professional standpoint, your professional journey. Clearly, we'll talk more about SCM Talent Group momentarily and that entrepreneurial venture. But kind of walk us through what led to your current role.
Sure. So I had an environmental science degree, which I have not really used. And a guy, one of my buddies, graduated ahead of me and came down to Atlanta, joined a company called Aerotech. They had a division called On-Site Environmental Staffing. And so when I got out, I was having a hard time finding a job. I didn't know anything like I know now about how to do that. So he said, hey, this company's hiring. You'd be recruiting environmental people. I'm like, well, that might be a way to learn more about the industry and get my foot in the door. So that's where it all started. And I stayed with them for a few years. I got different offices, worked out of Cincinnati. I worked out of Charlotte. I always wanted to get back to North Carolina. And there's a pretty good story here in terms of how I got into supply chain. My current business partner, his name's Paul Watts. He leads our recruiting team, but we worked together at Aerotech, and I met him back in Cincinnati. So the story is he left and went to, back at the time, was Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture,
right?
And was leading recruitment, and he said, hey, because I always wanted to start my own business, and that was an entrance point there. He said, we're building this supply chain practice. It was the first time that I guess at the time, Big 6 consulting firms were, they're all doing the same thing. So he said, I can get you a contract, and that's where it all started. So I formed a company called, it was Apple Executive Personnel.
Okay.
Yep. And I thought I knew everything. My parents said, son, what are you doing? You're 25. And I said, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and,
you've never been so smart as when you know nothing, right?
Exactly. So, almost made it over the hump. I didn't have enough cash. I didn't have enough knowledge of supply chain. I did not have the all-important relationships contacts. So I failed. I spent every penny I had, what little I had saved over those few years of working. And then I remember living at the beach. Girlfriend broke up with me when I ran out of money.
So that's 3 out of 4 bad things.
Yeah,
right?
like it's
You're
better.
out of money. You failed your business. Your girlfriend broke up with you, but you lived at the beach.
I lived at the beach though. Wrightsville Beach, incredible place. So I remember leaving, just packed up my car, boo-hooing, driving down to Atlanta. Well, my buddy Paul, my partner now, I said I need a place to stay, so I literally stayed on his couch and just found another job. Got into IT recruiting, couldn't stand it, and then I just couldn't stand it.
Right.
Not for you.
Not for me. Not for me. I respect the heck out of people that do it.
That's
so
right.
Of course, it's a very challenging area to recruit in. So anyway, fast forward a little bit here. A buddy of mine called. He was working as a contract recruiter at the Home Depot. They were Fortune 13 back then. They were planning to build their first supply chain department. It did not exist. You had the traditional functional silos, logistics, and so forth. So I got a call, and they said, hey, I said, did you do a little bit in supply chain? I said, as a matter of fact, I did. Well, we can't even find a recruiter that even knows what supply chain is. So went in and interviewed, got the job. It was actually a contract position. We were in kind of a mini recession back then. It was, I remember, right after 9/11 when this started.
Yep.
So that was back in 2001. Went in, met with the SVP of Global Logistics, a guy named Wayne Gibson, very sharp guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he laid out this PowerPoint and said, look what Walmart's doing. Look what Target is doing. We need to be doing the same thing. And back then, their supply chain was 80 distribution centers. They just opening up as fast as they could. They were growing at 30%. I think back then, it was insane. As anyone will tell you back in those days to work in that department. So we put that first department in place: VP of Supply Chain, Director of Supply Chain, and then 11 senior level supply chain managers to kind of integrate and collaborate with the 11 merchandising categories. So that's where everything started.
Wow.
So if I can, I want to get Enrique's take. You heard and I really appreciate your authentic telling of that story. That's I think one of the things that makes special leaders special is that ability to share those downtimes, those rough times, because that's what
where
forms.
you learn.
That's right, and it's so critical, and other people need to hear that, right? Because
exactly.
you're a movie star now, and
Not really.
I'm a big
Famous author about to be, right?
Yeah, we'll touch on that. But I'm a big fan. Your business has done well, and if folks say, "Hey, I can be Rodney Apple," they can relate to that tough time, that
the failure.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly,
yeah,
and a lot of successful business entrepreneurs, they say failure is really, you have to learn from those mistakes.
Amen.
I learned, hey, more money in the bank. You need more contacts, relationships. You kind of need to understand the supply chain stuff a little bit more because
know
it's
your
very
topic,
complex.
right?
know your focus area, and that's when the big light bulb went off when I was at Home Depot. I'm like, this supply chain thing that no one really knows about, not many, is going to get huge.
That's right.
Just huge. And so that team we put in place kind of developed the strategy for that RDC network that is in place now.
Love it.
And I said, well, I'm gonna stick it out here on the corporate side. So I finished that project. They asked me to stay on. Matter of fact, the SVP of Global Logistics said, hey, when are you leaving the recruiting department? I need you up on my floor. And so I moved up there, gave me an office, and I'm actually having lunch in a little bit with my former HR partner. She's been there 23 years.
Wow.
Shannon Whitfield was her name, and so we're getting ready to have lunch here right after this.
So I want to get Enrique's take. So hearing some of the entrepreneurial journey there from Rodney, what does it make you, as a fellow entrepreneur, what does that trigger for you?
Well, I relate to what you're saying. You got to get those failures out of the way as quickly as you can. I mean, the more you fail, the better it is, actually. The more you learn, the more you can improve on the mistakes that you make if you're humble enough and your ego doesn't get in the way, which is probably some of the pitfalls of some other entrepreneurs as well. But no, I can totally relate. It's just a matter of working hard and then just never giving up. I think there's no secret sauce. Everyone kind of like asks that question, and as I'm listening to your story, which is amazing, by the way, reflecting upon mine, it's just there's no secret sauce. If you really want to get it done, you just have to work hard and
grit and determination.
Keep at it.
Just relentless focus on moving the needle forward and improving and the leadership and the hiring. Even for my company, the first few years we had some mishires, and now we have a rock solid team. But it just sometimes you think you know everything about recruiting, and then you do it for your own company, and you're like, what did I do wrong here?
Right.
And but you course correct and you figure it out the next time around.
I think that's very important. Just kind of like hiring the right people and then making sure that whoever you hire is better than you are.
That's
just
right.
Going through that and say, hey, I need you because you're just so much better than I am.
That's right.
That's a really good point, though, because so many people hire people who are like them.
Right. No.
I mean, you find an affinity with someone. It's almost counterintuitive that the way you need to hire. You need to find somebody that, in my case, might even irritate me a little bit.
Correct.
Because I'm not an engineer by any standard. And sometimes I find engineers to be a bit rough around the edges, a little too frank, whatever it is.
Thank you.
But when I'm looking for an engineer, then I know what to look for, because if you build an organization of people who are just like you, then all you do is coalesce those weaknesses in the company, and you have to look for that diversity of opinion and skill and approach.
That's right. That's a good point you brought up there. Speaking of diversity, I'm a big proponent. I got some stories there too I can share, but the one is with building this first supply chain department, we were looking at diversity from many different angles. Obviously, people with different ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Thank you. I hadn't had my coffee yet this morning.
Yeah.
You're in the right place. I mispronounce everything.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then we were looking at people with diverse industry backgrounds. So we didn't want to just pull a team of retail folks together.
Yep.
We wanted folks with some CPG background and a manufacturing background. So we had a very, very diverse team, and it brought what that did was enable to bring in. We even had a guy that worked at Brad Saviali was his name, and literally rocket science. He worked at NASA for a while, so we had some very smart people on that first team. And I like to play the game. Where are they at now? People that I've recruited back in the day. You ought to see where these people are. A lot of them are chief supply chain officers, COOs, CEOs. It's pretty amazing.
It's gratifying too to
It
see
is.
people like that accelerate and elevate themselves through their career.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now take us into SCM Talent Group, the genesis there, and then what it does, what organization does.
Sure. So, when I left Home Depot, and the guy that hired me into there, he went over to Coca-Cola to be over the executive recruiting. And one day, it was actually, we were hosting a party when I lived in the Virginia Highlands. He came over and I said, "You've been picking off some recruiters over here at Home Depot." And I was kind of joking, when are you going to get me in over there at Coca-Cola? And he goes, "Matter of fact, I think they're looking for somebody to do manufacturing recruitment." I said, "Ooh, I haven't really done a whole lot of that," but so I went in there and interviewed, got the job, and I led the recruitment for their 22 factories across North America. But when I was there, it was a contract position, and longest contract ever. I stayed there about 6.5 years.
Wow.
On contract. That's when I formed the company, and this time I didn't want to call it after my last name. Oh, what do you do with Apple computers?
Yeah.
So I wanted it to
You
associate.
literally would be Rodney Apple if you were CEO of Apple. So that would
That's
make
right.
it easier for
People
the president.
always ask me, "Are you affiliated with the Apple company?" Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. I'd be retired on a boat somewhere.
Yeah,
not if I
right.
was.
We would not be talking.
We would not be sitting here today. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's when I formed the company. They said, "You need a legal entity to work here," and so I formed it for that purpose, so I could build that. So that technically was my first client, was Coca-Cola, and the person that was full-time left. She had the rest of the supply chain, so I inherited the entire thing. That included the sourcing, procurement, billions in spend there. Kept the 22 factories, not the hourly, but the professional up to the executive. All the planning cycles, so demand through supply, S&OP. I actually recruited the VP of that department.
Dang.
And then the continuous improvement, the Lean Six Sigma folks. I had both the North America and the global team. And then I supported the global supply chain group as well. They basically, all the roles based here that supported the different regions across the globe, the 200 countries that they sell product into. There's a hodgepodge of other things. Logistics. Can't forget about logistics. So I had the logistics functions. And
He won't let you.
That's right.
That's right.
I'll try my best.
Sustainability, environmental health, safety, everything that fell under that end-to-end supply chain umbrella. So that was that right there. The retail and the CPG just gave that foundation. That's where I learned most of what I know now about supply chain. I'm continuing to learn stuff new every day, especially coming into this place. This is insane. And then went from there to Kimberly-Clark and did the same thing there for about almost a year, and then wrapped up with switching gears to Cummins, so the automotive, highly industrial, highly engineered. So that was a lot different from where I'd come from, but it was fascinating. So that after that, I said, I'm ready to jump ship. And I wanted to do this when I was at Coke, and then 2008 came along, and I said, well, people they're not going to stop drinking Coca-Cola products, so I just stuck it out. I was busy as could be. I'm like, what recession? Because they don't shut down the factories. They don't shut down the supply chain. And even with the case with this coronavirus, it's not going to shut down. So
I said probably counter cyclical, right? At that point, I mean, maybe they will even buy more when.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's your
and
one,
they can shift.
The only thing that you can still kind of get that will give you that.
Right.
Yes.
Hope or satisfaction or
just
comfort, just comfort,
and
it
mixes so well with Jack Daniels.
So interestingly enough, and this episode, it'll publish in 2 or 3 weeks. But interestingly enough, as my dear wife pointed out last night, Georgia just legalized home delivery of alcoholic products. Wow. And it just so happens it's during this coronavirus.
I got it. I'm sorry. I got it. Making it work.
But who knows if that was timing? But
perfect timing.
That's right. But kidding aside, this is a interesting time, Rodney. I like how you put it. Kind of the optimistic side. Business still has to happen. It's just it finds a different way to happen.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So as you walked us through that background, which is really the first time, because you're a humble guy, the lunches we've had together, you've never shared any of that. But the stories that you could tell, especially your deep involvement with an iconic company like the Coca-Cola Company. Holy cow! No wonder you were prepared to build the team that has now grown and become.
It's really our key differentiator is having that internal knowledge. It's up here. I'm pointing to my brain for those that are listening. It's I've just seen. When you're immersed into such complex and diverse and enormous supply chains, and you're working with hundreds of people and partnering with, literally many hundreds of people.
Yep.
You sit in on the leadership team meetings, and you just learn by being there and talking to so many people. People love to talk about themselves.
Right.
So in recruiting, it's just it's an easy way, and so that's that foundational knowledge. I feel like I can sit down with anyone at any level in any company and hold a conversation about supply chain. And just from working with so many companies, every supply chain is unique, and so you have to be successful. You have to get into your client's supply chain, and what I mean by that is know the right questions to ask, so you can really understand how their unique supply chain is structured. Because the match, in my opinion, doesn't occur by a list of job requirements and skills. It's always important to kind of check those off, but I think it's far more important to find candidates that have worked in a similar, what I call, supply chain environment. Looking at things like the footprint, the size, scope, complexity, business model. You need to understand the business too, because supply chain touches every aspect of a business.
Absolutely.
So it's more of a that general MBA kind of I feel like I've built on top of the supply chain knowledge. Yeah.
So Greg, I know you've got some questions about SCM Talent Group and what they do.
Yeah, my favorite question is, because particularly in this talent environment, right? And it's very tight talent environment, and because this industry is growing so rapidly, and because there are so many options for recruiting or identification and screening of talent, how does somebody, if I'm like Enrique and I've got a logistics company, or if I'm like a couple of my other companies where I've got I'm looking for technology talent or unique skills, AI, blockchain, whatever it is, robotics. If I'm walking down the hall and what's the pain that I'm feeling? What are the keywords going through my head? What is it that I am not getting, or that I might be confused about that would cause me to come to your team and have you guys do the recruiting for me?
Well, it's pain. It's either pain or it's an opportunity to deploy something. Is where companies come to us for help. They may have gone through. We get this all the time. Hey, the recruiter we've been using forever, he does great in finance and accounting and IT, and he's just not giving us the right people. So they want a specialist that understands the stuff, that truly understands the end-to-end supply chain, and that's what we bring to the table. There's a lot of people that work in the functional areas like logistics. There really aren't a lot of recruiting firms out there that do the full end-to-end, the depth and breadth of the whole supply chain. So that's when they turn to us. And there could be cases like a confidential search where they don't want that to get out to internal employees. So that's another reason.
Mm-hmm. So you specialize in the broader supply chain, as you talked about. You've had the benefit of working in this for a long time. I won't say forever. I wanted to say forever. That seems like a long time.
Most of my career. Yeah.
But because of that, you have kind of an exceptional specialization in the broader end-to-end supply chain.
Yeah, been in so many factories, been in so many distribution centers, and I have not seen a lot of this technology. Definitely have worked with clients putting in robotics and things like that into their fulfillment centers. But
I don't know about you, Enrique, but I have experienced firsthand what Rodney just described, which is having used a traditional or a generalist recruiter and not being able to find that kind of talent.
That's very similar to what you just said, right? And I think it's right. I mean, you need someone that has been there, has done that, to kind of understand the kind of people that you're looking for. Otherwise, you just don't get it. And it's not that they're bad companies. There's amazing companies out there that are doing amazing jobs. But if you don't know the intricacies of what this industry kind of needs, then it's really, really hard to filter through all these amazing candidates that are out there.
That's
too.
Right. You have to nail down.
You have to at least get that feeling of what you're looking for.
Exactly. You have to nail down the profile so you can understand what type of candidate. But you got to understand the client supply chain. You need to find people that have worked in similar environments and have accomplished similar objectives and goals and so forth.
Yeah, good point.
So we've seen a lot of companies. a lot of individuals. And just at this show and then previously where it really stood out to us was in Austin when we did a show with EFT Reuters. And we've seen a lot of people coming to supply chain from other industries. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes. I get a lot of calls from people that want to get into it. They see the growth every week. How do I get into it? And in the book I'm writing, we cover topics like that. How do you pivot from one area to another?
Yeah.
So you have the candidates kind of asking you to come into the industry. Do you also have like companies asking for candidates that are not inside the industry, or do you see that more often these days?
Usually companies, they like to recruit from the same industry.
They're going to lean on that
they
generally,
are,
right?
But I'm going to know, because we've worked with most industries that are out there, I have a good sense of where we can go shop. If we can't get someone from your industry, well, here's a similar like-minded, for example, food and beverage. Well, we can also go shop in pharmaceutical.
That is a real gift. Being able to take someone from outside the industry and because you know so much about supply chain, to say they have gifts, skills, experience, whatever that can apply, and this is someone I would recommend to a company.
Absolutely.
That takes an incredible amount of knowledge of the industry to be able to extrapolate that skill set like that.
You're also making the case for why you've got to develop and embrace the talented group you've got on the team, right?
That's right.
Because you've got companies that are aggressive and are very intentional about building
Poaching.
Yeah, well,
that's what we do.
Right. But you know what? But beyond that, these companies were world-class companies that are determined to build an A-plus team.
That's right.
Right? So companies that take their talent for granted, they're bound to lose all their players, especially the key ones, right?
That's right. You have to know how to hire. You have to know how to direct source. That's critical. Posting and praying is what we call it in the recruiting industry. Is just doesn't get you're fishing from a pond versus the ocean, and you're not using all of your bait that you have.
That's
so
right.
you need to open that up and direct source. I almost look at it like you have, companies have the strategic sourcing procurement. You need to be thinking that strategically and I use the term omni-channel. You need to have many different sourcing channels. Sure, advertising, posting can be one,
right?
But you've got to be able to formulate, here's the companies that we know will have people that fit into our culture, into our business model, and you have to go after them, and you have to know what you're going to say and the right messaging and so forth.
But even when you hook a candidate and get him on the team or her on the team, you got to develop. You got to make sure that they're happy and loved working there, right?
100%. The development, hiring, and then it's development, and then the retention. You have to be excellent at all three if you really want to be truly successful.
Excellent. Okay, so we touched on your book because we're going to shift gears in a minute and we'll get y'all's thoughts, especially yours, Rodney, on key takeaways from Modex this week. But let's talk about your book, Supply. I'm hoping that the camera can hear that, or see that. Maybe Amanda can make sure the light's not too blinding. But
it's good.
Supply Chain Careers. Thank you, Greg. You've got outstanding 2020
I'm watching the monitor.
The guidebook for launching and accelerating your career in supply chain management. So, there's very few people that would be on a short list of incredibly qualified people to write that book, and you definitely are on that short list. This book is coming out in 2020, right?
Hopefully
2020.
Between the business and have two small kids, just finding the time to write and edit. We're going through the edits, the first round of editing. So I'm hoping that we can get this out the door here in the next few months. Definitely in 2020 is the goal.
Yeah, benefit a bunch of people.
I hardly had time to reading. Like now, you took the time to writing.
I know.
Well, you want to know where the foundation?
But that's actually pretty impressive.
I would love to hear why and
that'll be interesting.
So serving as the career coach for ASCM, formerly APIC, since 2014, where I develop content. We do webinars on all aspects of professional development. I have been writing. We do a lot of content marketing for my business. So we have a supply chain talent blog. I get asked to be interviewed in a lot of different trade journals, even the big guys, Wall Street Journal, CNBC. So contributing to articles. And then one day, light bulb went off, another light bulb. And I was looking at this and just said, got to have several hundred pages of – we were running out of ideas for the career coach program we do. Going into year 6, we're just trying to think of something new. So we've covered – about everything under that professional development umbrella. And it takes you from the journey of what is supply chain, and I'm writing this in layman terms, nothing technical here.
That's good. That's about my level. I appreciate that, Rod.
Yeah, so, and then from there, it's what are the career paths look like across different industries, from company sizes, from both the shipper side, manufacturing, retail, wholesale, distribution. It gets into the service providers. It gets into, here at Modex, the technology, the equipment side. And then it takes you from how do you put your resume together, LinkedIn profile, develop a job search strategy in a linear fashion, getting your first job, your networking, offer negotiation. And then the next section goes from you get your first job, well, how do you develop your leadership skills? How do you progress up the ladder? And I take it all the way to the top of the supply chain, like the chief supply chain officer, so that from the beginning of what is this stuff to I've reached the peak of my career height.
Love it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
I mean, as if, first of all, the war for talent or the talent shortage has recently hit the broad market, but this is a problem we've had for nigh on a decade in supply chain, is to have enough talent that has the skills that are required to undertake this industry. So that's right. That's a really valuable tool.
I'm excited about it.
Well, write it.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I'm going to finish it.
So the first round.
Can't have pressure, though.
Years
right?
in the making.
Pressure creates a writer's block.
It does.
First round edit, you've got the basic manuscript. You're going through all of it for first round, and then you may or may not add additional chapters. Is that kind of where?
Well,
I've never written a book.
I haven't either. This is my first time.
I read a book on writing a book once.
Can you refer that to me?
I can. I will. As a matter of fact, I will.
Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So this is the first time. I did have a professional editor go through it, and really that was the challenge for me, is I just stare at it and like, how do I get this to where it really connects in the same tone, the same flow? So we've got that. And as I'm going through that, I'm like, this is amazing, to see it come to life, the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm excited to get it out.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch gears from that exciting news to the exciting world of Modex, which is this is day 4. We're a few hours from it really wrapping up. Great, in light of a tough week, right, for the business community, for the globe.
The world. Yeah.
That's right. Still, as we've said just about on every show, this has been an outstanding show for the Supply Chain Now team.
Yeah.
Between the 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards on Tuesday that Modex hosted, that we pulled off with a variety of partners, of course, including the Vector team, including Metro Atlanta Business Chamber and CSCMP and Apex, which was just a home run in its second year, to all the great people like Rodney and Enrique that we've been able to share an hour of time with, right?
Yeah.
But I want to get y'all's key takeaways. I'm excited. I'm partial. I love these shows. You get out and you meet people, and you still have that interpersonal connection, and you're able to benchmark and gather intel and add to your network. These are timeless advantages to building a business. So I'm partial if y'all can't tell. But Rodney, starting with you, and I'm going to go around. I'll go from Rodney to Enrique to George White here to my right.
Yes, sir.
I want to get your key takeaways from this week. Sure. So I only could do 2 days dealing with another issue I won't even go into on the personal front with a rental home here that's mold infested. So I had to
welcome to Georgia. Welcome back to Georgia.
So anyway, that's a whole other story. But my mind has been blown. I'm kind of kicking myself for not coming to this before, especially having lived in Atlanta. But this is the future. We are if you're a nerdy or geeky kind of person, this is a place where you can come and completely geek out big time. So just watching the plethora of robots walking around and moving around was one thing. And then, from everything from vision picking, I thought that was pretty fascinating, using some kind of form of like a Google Glasses or similar. I don't know if that was the same thing. And then just meeting and greeting, the networking activities is tremendous. But I've learned a whole lot. You can start to see, when you see things in person, you hear about all these things, and I've seen some of it, of course. But, talking to these AI companies and these brilliant people that are here, it's just been amazing.
Yep. Agreed. Completely agree. So moving right along, Enrique, same question to you. I know everyone, business doesn't stop for weeks like this, and Enrique, I know Vector is growing left and right. For a little bit you've seen this week, tell us.
Yeah, and I've been here to this show before. Like, I think this is my third or fourth time that I've been here, and you're right. This particular week was a lot of different things happening in the world, as people know, and so there's been a lot of different issues that we have to take care of. But what I've seen, it's just comparing year to year and how exponentially technology is growing. It's amazing. Like, if I remember, like, the first show that I came to, like, probably, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, and what you see now to what you saw then, it's just so incredibly advanced and cool and exciting. And it's one of those shows that even if you're not like a supply chain professional, or even if you don't really have any kind of connection to the show, similar to what I think maybe some auto shows could be, if you just like robots and moving parts and equipment and things like that, it's interesting.
Agreed.
The other thing is from the networking opportunities. It's great. This year has been a little bit diminished by the virus, but it's always been like a good meeting point for getting to know smart and very talented individuals. So it's been fun.
I bet we have identified some new targets for the Logistics with a Purpose series.
I agree.
Here on Supply Chain Now that Vector powers for. So we're adding to our target list, right?
That is correct.
All right, so Greg, moving right along to you. What a week! But what at the top of your list?
Two things are at the top of my list. One, I think we may have redefined the universal human greeting for the entire planet during this week.
Which one?
I really think. I think we're going to wind up with the elbow.
We're not going to go with the foot.
Yeah, I love that one.
I don't like that.
But
one.
I think we may have, or maybe in the process of redefining it. This has been a watershed week, and two, this won't be popular with our hosts, but I think we may be in the process of redefining the landscape for shows like these. Look, it's no secret to anyone who does these shows that you're conspicuous by your absence, and that's the primary reason for you to be here. We've seen a lot of companies flocking to us to get the kind of exposure that they thought and hoped they would get at this show, but because, as you said, Enrique, because of the lessened attendance, they just aren't going to get. And I think we'll start to see, and we've already started to see some shows go completely virtual. And I think there's goodness in that. I've seen a lot of it.
If you look for it, right? You can't just assume the worst.
I think there's goodness in it because, look, this is expensive.
Yep.
Let's face it. It's expensive, and universally, when you walk away, I've put on conferences like this, and I've attended hundreds of conferences like this. And when you walk away from these things, universally, the answer to the question, what was the most valuable thing that you experienced at the show? It was the networking events. It was getting face to face with people. It was not that I really loved being on the expo floor, though. It is cool, and you do get to see a lot of ideas, and I love that aspect of the show. But I think that this could begin the reshaping of the trade show and trade organization or industry organization formats that we see out there. And I think to the goodness of everyone, because imagine if ASCM goes online and has some regional centers or whatever people are comfortable with where they can do an individual gathering, but essentially the ASCM annual show is online all the time, right? And you're going, wow, I really need robotics. You can go and look at those all in one place without all the travel and expense and for anyone and risk, frankly, in this day and age.
Yeah.
So I know those are odd, as you can expect from me. Those are odd observations. But I mean that's what really stood out about this show.
I don't think they're odd. I think this is let's face it, not to be dramatic, but when we talked about this last show, when the NBA suspends its season, when the NCAA removes attendees from the college tournament, both those things have never happened before. Spring college football games, staying in the realm of sports.
Four Fortune 50 companies just in Atlanta just went completely work from home.
We have suspended transit via air from Europe. These things, we are in some unique times.
Yep.
So I don't think it's odd. I think it's natural, especially with the backdrop of Modex and the size of this supply chain circus, and I mean that very, very complimentary. There's going to be a huge spillover effect. There's going to be some huge lessons learned in the weeks and months to come. And inevitably, especially at a time when arguably, or maybe inarguably, the trade show landscape has already been disrupted a bit by the digital twin of it.
Yep.
Who knows where we go?
I think it's an accelerant for that sort of thing.
Yeah, good point. Okay, well, nevertheless, MHI is doing some great things. We interviewed John Paxson today, who becomes CEO of the organization in January. Love their leadership.
And he shared some vision towards some virtual solutions.
That's right. All right, so I want to make sure, Rodney, coming back to you, that we let our listeners know where they can learn more about SCM Talent Group, about some of your content, your services, how they can connect with you.
How they can hound you into finishing this book so they can get into this industry also.
Sure.
Put yourself out there.
Sure. So probably the best place is just scmtalent.com. There you will find a lot of the content that will be in the book. We've got a big tab at the top that says advice, and everything is segmented by the format. So you've got the blog. There's articles in there covering professional development, but we also talk about how companies, things they can do to improve their ability to source and hire supply chain talent. We've got some webinars that we put in there, as is the ASCM Career Coach. All of those can be found, I think, on their YouTube channel.
Nice.
If you want to go back and watch those. And then we've got infographics, and we've got a YouTube channel. Been doing a little video as well lately. So we've got a plethora of advice there. And again, a lot of that is some of the foundation that's going to be in the book that hopefully comes out here in a few months. And I welcome the pressure to finish the book, because sometimes that helps kick things into another gear.
You heard it here first, folks. If you want access to this book, hit him up on LinkedIn.
There you go.
And Rodney, if you can help us out, we're building a little forklift fleet here. Maybe you got some
do you have any swag?
Sitting our way.
We will shamelessly work for swag.
Okay. I'll check my bag over here. I don't think I brought any.
Bag of tricks.
They don't let
just leave us this.
Yep. They don't let. We were going to do a booth too, and I guess recruiting companies don't fit the criteria. So
is that right? Yep. I didn't know anyone could be excluded.
Well,
that's why you're here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, it's my material handling equipment and software and hardware and robots.
I guess
so we
hadn't thought about that.
We don't make any of that stuff. So I get it. It's no big deal.
That's right.
No harm done.
No harm done. SCMtalent.com.
That's right.
Right. And I'm sure, Rodney, we could check you out on LinkedIn amongst other places.
I live on there. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. I really appreciate, there's all types of different recruiting and talent acquisition and talent management approaches, and I love the values you bring to the table, especially from a been there and done that standpoint, and it's always refreshing to kind of sit down and reconnect with Rodney Apple, founder of SCM Talent Group. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Greg.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Enrique, one final question for you. We have got a variety of folks teed up for the next few episodes, but already we have had Thrive on, right? That was a great episode.
Yeah.
Mike Menina. What was that? There was one thing for our listeners of this episode that may not have found that series yet, especially since it's one of our newest series, right?
Right.
Logistics with a Purpose. What's the driving force there? Why did you see a need for that series and the message that it shares?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do with that series, Logistics with Purpose, is basically just highlighting companies that are giving back to the community, giving companies like ours that are really trying to change the world, making it a better place, that are actually have this purpose ingrained in their DNA, and it's part of their culture and their strategy. So it's just not more. It's not like we have
lip service.
It's not lip service. It's not like we have this social. Part of our company is like, no, that's what the company's all about. If you take that, then there's no company. And it's really just an opportunity for those companies to share their stories, because I feel like when I'm listening to your show and some other podcasts out there, like, it's inspirational, right? So you're usually driving, or at least that's me when I'm listening to the podcast. You're usually driving, and you want to hear interesting conversations, and if they're inspirational and they make you feel better and they make you feel empowered to go and do things, then even better. And that's what we're trying to do with that series.
Yep. So stay tuned. We got a ton of additional content. The first episode was a home run with Mike and Thrive. They're doing some really neat work supporting a variety of farmers around the world, and really enjoyed it and appreciate your support of what we're trying to do here at Supply Chain Now.
Sorry.
We broke your rule. We did.
I'm trying to start a trend here, man. I'm trying to create a whole new kind of viral.
And Jimmy Kimmel.
So, Greg, what a great episode. I think both of these two gentlemen, the values they have and how they do business, I mean, it sets the bar in so many different ways.
Yeah, I agree. Look, this has been a long time coming, and I think it's really valuable to our industry and those many people coming in from the outside, right? And we're always huge admirers of what you do and how you do it.
Yep. I got a Vector tattoo just last Monday. Did you know that?
Thank you.
Did you?
I appreciate that.
I did too, but I turned it sideways.
All right, so
we'll have to bring Ronnie back once we can sign the book.
Yes.
We need.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to have a signed copy of your book for sure.
Book signing ceremony.
I would love to do that.
Book signing ceremony.
Consider it done.
I'll put the place.
That's right. There we go. So big thanks again, Rodney Apple, founder, SCM Talent Group. Big thanks to Enrique Alvarez, one of our guest co-hosts here today, managing director with Vector Global Logistics. Where can folks learn more about Vector?
Thank you. VectorGlobalLogistics.com and LinkedIn as well.
Greg White, excellent episode. This pretty much caps off a week of awesome interviews at Modex, and awesome is the right word.
It is. I mean, we met and, we get to see Enrique every day, but I got to tell you, it never ceases to surprise me what's so great about this man's heart.
Agreed, and it's genuine, and that's the best part about it. So
I'll send this episode to my wife. Thank you, Greg.
To our audience, be sure to check out
on TikTok.
Yes.
Be sure to check out our events and webinars tab at supplychainradio.com. We've got a variety of in-person and virtual events with organizations around the world, EFT, Reuters events, the Automotive Industry Action Group, of course, the Georgia Logistics Summit, which is being postponed to August, I believe, and many, many more. You can check that out at supplychainnowradio.com. If there's something you cannot find, Google or otherwise, you can send our CMO a note. She's the boss, Amanda at supplychainnowradio.com, and we'll try to serve as a resource for you. Big thanks again to Rodney Apple, Enrique Alvarez, Greg White. Check us out at supplychainnowradio.com or wherever you get your podcast from. Be sure to subscribe. On behalf of the entire team, Scott Luton wishes you a wonderful week ahead, and we will see you next time on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.